Very well, guys. So we're going to continue now with this next piece, which is the handle. Let's save real quick before anything happens. And one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm going to hide everything else so that we don't have as many elements. This retopo flow surfaces that we have, let's delete them again to make sure that when we start our retopo process, we don't have any issues. Let's save again. And we're going to go retopo flow and start at active. Now, the interesting thing about this one is that I'm going to show you a method that I like to call the low poly remeshing method. So as we saw with the pommel of the element, we went for relatively high amounts of polygons. We went for 14. In this particular case, we're actually going to start very, very low. Now, there's one thing that we can do here, by the way. We can actually work with symmetry. So if I activate symmetry X and I start adding points, you're going to see that the symmetry is being respected, and we can just create both sides. So it's a good way to try to get things as close as possible. You don't need to do it, and I'm actually not going to use it because I feel like it's going to complicate things a little bit more than it should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here on the basic shape, as you can see right here. And then we're just going to continue drawing my elements. I'm going to click this point right here. And I'm going to try to keep this as low poly as possible. So I can't tell you exactly how many points I'm going to try to capture here. But it's probably going to be like 10 points. So we're going to go here, 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 and here. One more. As you can see, that's like a very sharp point right there. So I'm going to do one more here. And we're going to finish right around there, which is roughly the halfway point. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means we can go to 10 later on if we need to. But the thing is here, I'm going to try to simplify this as much as possible. And then if we need to, we're going to add a little bit more divisions. What do I mean by this? For instance, here, I'm going to go from this point right here all the way down to the next level. And we're going to create this right here. So as you can see, we're like, hey, we definitely could use another point right there. Yes, I know, but we're not going to add it just yet. And I'll explain why in just a second. So let's do this right here. Let's change to the polypen quad to quad only. This should make it a little bit easier as well. We can just go right there and just move this point back. And what we want to do here is we want to try to capture as much of the silhouette as possible. Now remember that we don't need to catch every single point of the silhouette. That's a very, very common mistake that people make when they're retopologizing. You just need to catch the high points of the silhouette, because all of the low points, like all of the crevices, all of the cracks, all of those things are going to be captured by the normal map. So as long as we capture the main shapes of the elements, we're going to be just fine. So for instance, here we go right around there. This one goes down and this one goes down. Now, remember when we talked about triangles, and we mentioned the triangles are not bad, but we need to know when and where to use it, right? Like they're really good tools, but again, they can be like a double-edged sword. So for instance, here, I can definitely see that we need one extra line going across the whole thing. So I'm going to go to my loops tool, and I'm going to add one loop right there. And you're going to see that the loop will immediately jump to the high points of the element, and it will give me a closer silhouette to what we're looking for right here. Let me go back to our poly pen. We'll just move this a little bit right there. Now in here, I really don't need to add any more points. I feel like I'm properly capturing the silhouette of this thing right here. But over here, another extra loop might not be a bad idea, because again, when you see it from the top, you can see that we're missing quite a bit of the element right there. So I'm going to go to the loop, and I'm going to add one loop right there. And that loop, as you can see, it's going to help me capture this silhouette right here. Now we're going to have 10 points, but I don't want 10 points everywhere. So I'm just going to collapse there, and here's where we're going to have a triangle. So whenever I need to decide if I want a triangle or not, I try to ask myself, is it going to help the silhouette? Is this actually going to allow me to have a cleaner or more intense silhouette? And if the answer is yes, then a triangle is a good idea. For instance, here, right here, I can see that if we go from this point in, we're going to be able to capture a very nice silhouette that will follow pretty much all this shape all the way to this back part. See that? So this one, it's necessary, because otherwise we're not going to have this very nice clean silhouette that we have here on the back. However, I don't want to bring this edge loop all the way to the front of the object, because if I do that, what's going to happen is I'm going to get an extra edge loop that's going to go around the whole object. So here, that's a perfect place, right around here, to create a triangle. Actually, now that I see this, As you can see on this area right here, we might need another triangle because otherwise we're not going to be able to insert that. So I'm going to go to loops. I'm going to insert another edge loop right there. There we go. And if we go to polypen, now we can get our polygon right there and just make that a triangle. And this point right here can go to the high point of that guy. And again, all of this crack that we see right there, it might seem like we need to capture it, but it really doesn't change the silhouette of the object. So all of that information can be like projected onto the normal map. So from here, we're gonna go down, down, and this is why, again, Retopoflow is so strong. Because for instance here, I can very quickly like move ahead and then just start like mapping out the general silhouette of my element all the way to the bottom, and then like a nice little edge loop right there. And then we go to the back side, we grab this one, we follow a very similar process. We go to all the high points, and where we see a high point or a plane change, we know that that's a plane where we need to add one of these guys. For instance, all of that definitely, it's a little bit more curved, so let's add one more there. Same thing there, probably like a second one right there is not a bad idea. And there we go. I don't care too much about the middle line right now. I know we're gonna recover it as soon as we finish like filling everything up. And then, for instance, these ones that are very obvious, it's just a matter of using our quad draw and going in the direction of the sculpt in this case. Eventually what's going to happen is that we might find certain positions or points where things don't match as exactly. So for instance, if we have 3 right here and over here we only have 2, well, no problem. We just like start minimizing or simplifying by using triangles. But look how fast this becomes by just going around this element and for instance capturing this whole shape right here. So one of the secrets about retopology is that we want to have a very let's call it a very my god, what's the word? It's not understandable. A very guessable, I guess is the word. Like we need to, when we see the flow of topology, it needs to make sense. So in this case, we're making this topology go in the direction of the rocks, which is the most obvious way in which the topology can continue. And again, we might need to add certain edge loops or modify certain elements as we keep going. For instance, here, we can see that this thing is getting a little bit stretched. So we just start moving a couple points around. And I know that I'm going to have to add some more elements here and there. But as you can see, this method of just like very quickly mapping out the general flow of the elements, it's an excellent method to start capturing all of these details. So I'm going to do this piece right here. Let's keep going. As you can see here, we're going to start simplifying. So for instance, we don't need as many polygons on this area. We're like capturing most of it very, very nicely. But if we don't want to have like, or if we don't want to have a hard time, another thing we can do is just go to the loop tool and add one more loop right there. And that loop's gonna be helpful for us. Here's where we can go with the patch tool and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just start like merging, right? However, you can see that again, there's a little bit of a change of planes right there. So here's where triangles and that sort of stuff can be very helpful. So let's say, for instance, right here, from here to here, just gonna hit enter. That one looks good. From here to here, that one looks good. From here to here, that one looks good. And here's where we're gonna start having some like slight little issues, right? So I'm gonna go to polypen again, and we're gonna go from here. Let's try our triquad again, so that we have a triangle right there. And then this becomes a little bit easier to just fill in. Always try to move a couple points, relax them so that we don't have super intense lines. That's a good sign of topology, of good topology when things are not as stretched. And then we have another like little triangle right here. Again, triangles are not bad. We just need to know where to use them. And look at that. That looks really, really good. Now we can decide whether or not we want to add an extra edge loop, for instance, right here, so that we can get a little bit more puffiness. I think it's like warranted for this personal part. And there we go. And we just keep going. So for instance, over here, again, no need to add more lines if we don't want to. But for instance, I can definitely see here that this loop is having a little bit of an issue capturing the whole thing. So I'm gonna go to polypen, just like get this out a little bit more right there. How do we solve this? Well, we can just like do something like that, But then I can definitely see that, again, we're missing a little bit of puffiness here. So I would like to have an edge loop going in a nice direction. But if that's not possible, don't worry too much about it. Again, it's kind of like solving a Rubik's puzzle when we're doing this. And as long as we manage to cover most of the areas, we're going to be fine. Again, I'm also going to show you a trick when we finish this. It's probably going to be the next video when we see the trick. And with the trick, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be smoothing this. So we're going to give it a little bit more resolution so we can capture a little bit more detail. So for instance, here, let's add one more poly pen. That one right there, that one right there, and that's just a triangle. I do recommend trying to keep the center line like a nice clean loop, because then if we want to do like more stuff, we can do it a little bit easier. So for instance, here, as you can see, we can just fill that in. And yes, I know that we're not properly capturing all of this right here, but once we do the trick that I'm going to show you in the next video, it's all going to make a little bit more sense. Let's do quad here, and let's try to capture this nice quad line that we have going over here. As you can see here, the topology again changes, so that's where we need to be a little bit more mindful and be like, hey, you know what? Like we definitely want to capture the proper silhouette. Let's go quad. There we go. Here again, nothing bad's gonna happen if we just like collapse one of those edges and we make a triangle. That allows us to reduce the amount of polygons that are going down, and should also make it a little bit easier. Maybe over here where I need to add another new polygon. So that's the thing with retopology. Retopology, it's all about like trying to find like the best solution for the sections that we're working with. So in some sections we might need more triangles. In other sections, oh my god, sorry about that. In other sections we might need a little bit less triangle. Let's go try quad again. There we go. So for instance, here I can already see a division. So here's where we're gonna have the division. That tells me that this guy needs to be pushed a little bit forward, and from here we're gonna create a triangle. So we're gonna have a couple of triangles right here that are gonna give me this sort of edge flow. Let's go here again. There we go. So right there, and then over here we're gonna push this one a little bit closer. There we go. And that's it. So now from here again, we probably want to have some sort of triangle right there, because otherwise this is not gonna like flow nicely. Let's add one more loop right here, and then just merge this, guys. Oh, right there. From here to here, from here to here, and another triangle right there. Cool. So as you can see, like little by little, we're finishing all of these elements right here. So let me do a little bit more just to, again, like explain how all of this is flowing. And then I'm going to stop the video. I'll finish the whole thing, again, following the exact same processes. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can utilize this technique that I've been talking about to get a little bit more detail on this handle, because this handle is very organic, right? So opposed to like the cylindrical handle or other points like that, we could definitely benefit from having a little bit more topology on this area than in other parts. So there we go. You can see that's a big hit right there. Again, we need to consider, do we need to capture or not? Probably not. But here I can definitely see that eventually we're going to have a little bit of a point right there. So that point probably does need to be captured. Another technique that we can use right here. Let me bring this down. There we go. Because again, you can definitely see how complicated it's becoming to hold the shape right there. So that's the topology itself, the geometry itself. It kind of talks to you. It doesn't, like, I don't hear voices. Don't worry. But I mean, it's like you can see how it needs to flow to get the proper effects. For instance, here, I definitely know that an extra edge loop, it's going to be really helpful. So if I add an extra edge loop there, then this thing can flow a little bit better down here, right? And then we get this very nice thin area going into this part. But as you can see, like this is not working. So that tells me again that this area right here, it's probably gonna be like a triangle. Going to like a point so that it can, so I can capture this interesting effect right there without really like changing too much of the topology over here. Again, I see this big line right here, and I don't love it because I know that this is a huge square that's gonna need some help to capture all of the elements. So let's keep going here. One of the rules of thumb that you need to follow, and it's very important, hopefully everyone's watching all the way to this point, is we need, again, to make sure that everything flows in this sort of like horizontal and vertical direction. So that's why I'm making sure that even though this is like, when you see it from the side, it's kind of like slanted, it still follows like a horizontal direction in that particular angle, right? And that is, again, important, especially for characters later on, if you're going to be doing characters, so that the formation and everything works as you would expect. Here, for instance, we're going to have a triangle. Let's do triquads. There we go. Here, we need another division. Now, since we have a triangle right there, that's why triangles are also very, very like handy. When you have a triangle, it immediately becomes a square when you insert an edge loop. So you don't have to worry too much about triangles because they can very quickly become squares by doing certain things. There we go. There we go. For instance, here, again, I rather preserve the flow. And on this flat area, that's where we're going to have like the triangle right here. Okay, because I'd rather have this flow going as close as possible to the element than that object. So yeah, that's it, my friends. This is the technique to do this handle right here. There's a couple of other techniques that I'm going to be showing you, and you guys will be deciding which one works best for your personal project. But this one's it for now. And as I say, I'm going to finish doing the retopology on the top part and on the bottom part. As you can see, I'm missing very little spots right now. And then I'll show you how we can make this even better. So yeah, hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one.